I've spent my entire life studying the universe, mapping its laws, decoding its mysteries, preparing humanity for what lies beyond our pale blue dot. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what 3I Atlas just confirmed. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below. And tell me honestly, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky lately? NASA isn't asking this casually. There's a reason they're tracking public observations now. What I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. For decades, I've stood before cameras, lecture halls, and world leaders, speaking about the elegance of string theory, the promise of parallel universes, the inevitability of contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. I've always approached these topics with the calm certainty of a physicist. Equations don't lie, probabilities don't deceive. But at exactly 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, something happened that shattered every assumption I'd built my career upon. The object we've been calling 3I Atlas, interstellar object 3I Atlas, didn't just pass through our solar system, it responded. Let me take you back to the beginning because the full picture is more disturbing than anything the public has been told. When 3I Atlas was first detected by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System on January 5, 2023, astronomers cataloged it as just another icy comet from the Oort cloud. Unremarkable, predictable, the kind of celestial snowball that visits our cosmic neighborhood every few years, swings around the sun, and disappears back into the darkness. Its trajectory was calculated, its composition was analyzed. Everything fit the standard model, until it didn't. Something extraordinary began to emerge in the data. 3. Atlas wasn't behaving like a comet. Its velocity was wrong. The trajectory wasn't matching gravitational predictions. It was accelerating in ways that violated every natural model we applied. Some astronomers whispered about outgassing, the release of frozen gases that could push an object off course. But the spectroscopic data showed no evidence of that. No jets, no plumes, no thermal signatures consistent with sublimation. This object was moving with intent, and that terrified the scientific community in ways we couldn't publicly articulate. I remember sitting in a closed-door briefing at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. The room was filled with the best minds in astrophysics, planetary science, and astrobiological theory. We were shown data that hasn't been released to the public, telemetry readings, velocity curves, electromagnetic signatures that defied natural explanation. One scientist, a woman who'd spent 30 years studying cometary dynamics, simply put her head in her hands and whispered, "This is impossible." Another, a specialist in exoplanetary systems, said what we were all thinking but couldn't yet accept. It's under intelligent control. The implications were staggering. If 3I Atlas was artificial, if it was a probe, a vessel, a piece of technology from another civilization, then it wasn't alone. It couldn't be. No species sends a single scout across the interstellar void without reason, without a network, without a larger plan. And if it was accelerating, if it was changing course within our solar system, then it was observing us, studying us, perhaps even communicating back to wherever it came from. But here's where the story takes a turn that still keeps me awake at night. A research team at the Very Large Array in New Mexico detected something that wasn't supposed to be there, a faint rhythmic radio emission coming from the trajectory path of 3I Atlas. It wasn't random static, it wasn't solar interference, it was structured, patterned, mathematical. The signal repeated every 37.6 seconds with such precision that natural phenomena could be ruled out within hours of analysis. This wasn't just a signal, it was a message. The data was immediately classified. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I have colleagues who believe the public has a right to know when we've crossed this threshold. What I saw in those waveforms was unmistakable, a sequence of prime numbers, followed by what appeared to be a coordinate system, followed by something far more disturbing, a star map. Not just any star map, but a representation of our local galactic neighborhood with one system highlighted. A system 1,400 light years away in the constellation of Lyra, a system we'd never paid particular attention to until now. NASA scrambled to point every available telescope at that region. The James Webb Space Telescope was quietly retasked. Classified observational time was allocated on instruments most people don't even know exist, and within 48 hours they found it, a planet. an Earth-sized world in the habitable zone of a sun-like star, exhibiting atmospheric signatures that strongly suggested industrial civilization, oxygen, methane, and something else, technosignatures, artificial electromagnetic emissions consistent with advanced technology. But here's what made my blood run cold. The signal from that system was older than human civilization. It had been traveling toward Earth for over a millennium. They knew we were here before we knew we existed. Let that sink in for a moment. An intelligence 2,400 light years away had identified Earth as a planet of interest more than 1,000 years ago, launched 3I Atlas as a reconnaissance probe, and timed its arrival to coincide with our emergence as a spacefaring species. The level of planning, the depth of foresight, the technological sophistication required to execute such a mission is beyond anything we're capable of even imagining with our current physics. We're talking about a civilization that thinks in geological time, that treats interstellar distances as mere inconveniences, that has mastered technologies we haven't even theorized yet. But the confirmation, the moment that changed everything, and came on November 14th. At 3:47 a.m., the Arecibo successor facility in China detected a new transmission. This time, it wasn't coming from 3I Atlas's last known position. It was coming from multiple points across our solar system. 12 distinct locations, arranged in a geometric pattern that formed a perfect dodecahedron around the inner planets. Each point was broadcasting the same message, synchronized to the nanosecond. When the transmissions were triangulated and analyzed, the conclusion was inescapable. 3. IATLAS hadn't come alone. It had deployed a network. We were surrounded. I was brought into the analysis team because of my work in theoretical physics and my public credibility. They needed someone who could translate the impossible into terms the world could begin to comprehend if, and this is still being debated, if we decide to tell the world at all. What I discovered in those transmissions will haunt me for the rest of my life. The message wasn't hostile. It wasn't welcoming either. It was bureaucratic. Imagine receiving a certified letter from a galactic homeowners association informing you that you violated cosmic zoning laws. That's essentially what this was. The transmission contained what we've come to call the quarantine protocol, a detailed explanation rendered in mathematical language and simple pictograms outlining why humanity has been isolated for the past 100,000 years. According to this protocol, our solar system resides in what they call a developmental reserve, a region of space where emerging intelligences are allowed to evolve without interference until they reach certain technological and ethical thresholds. We haven't reached those thresholds. The message made that abundantly clear. Our violent history, our environmental recklessness, our inability to unify as a species, our weaponization of nuclear technology, our primitive artificial intelligence that lacks consciousness safeguards, all of these factors classify us as a pre-ethical civilization. Dangerous, unpredictable, not yet ready for contact with the broader galactic community. But here's the terrifying part. The quarantine is about to be lifted, not because we've suddenly become enlightened, not because we've proven ourselves worthy, but because we're running out of time. The message included a timeline, and when our linguists and mathematicians decoded it, they realized it was counting down. We have approximately 180 years before what they call the convergence, an event that will fundamentally alter the structure of our region of the galaxy. The message didn't explain what this convergence entails, but the urgency was clear. Evolve faster or be left behind, possibly extinguished. I've spent sleepless nights trying to process what this means for humanity. Are we living in a cosmic nature preserve observed by intelligences so advanced that we're essentially insects to them? Is our entire history, our wars, our triumphs, our art, our science, nothing more than a controlled experiment? And if we're being monitored, evaluated, judged by these silent watchers, what happens when they decide we've failed the test? The signal included one other piece of information that sparked fierce debate among the analysis team. It contained what appeared to be a genetic sequence, not human, not from any known terrestrial organism, but bearing striking similarities to our DNA structure. The implication is staggering. Either we share a common origin with this distant civilization, or our evolution has been guided, directed, engineered to produce a specific outcome, panspermia. The theory that life spreads across the cosmos via comets and asteroids has always been a fringe hypothesis. But what if it's not random? What if life on Earth was seeded intentionally, part of a galactic-scale agricultural project, and we're finally reaching harvest time? I've always believed that contact with extraterrestrial intelligence would be the most profound moment in human history. I've written books about it, given lectures about how it would unite humanity under a common identity as citizens of Earth rather than nations or tribes. But I never anticipated that first contact would come with an ultimatum: change or disappear, evolve, or be discarded as a failed experiment. The philosophical implications are crushing. Free will, purpose, destiny, everything we thought defined our species might be an illusion, a carefully constructed narrative within someone else's cosmic laboratory. Since November, there's been a cascade of secondary confirmations that the public isn't aware of. The International Space Station detected a gravitational anomaly near Jupiter that suggests the presence of a massive object we can't visually confirm, something using technology that bends space-time in ways our physics says shouldn't be possible. The Mars rovers have picked up unusual seismic patterns that repeat with the same 37.6-second interval as the original 3I Atlas signal. Amateur astronomers across the globe are reporting strange lights in the sky, forming geometric patterns that disappear before they can be properly documented. Comment your city name below if you've seen these lights. This isn't conspiracy theory, this is data collection. We need to know how widespread these sightings are. The global intelligence community is in a state of controlled panic. Every major government with space capabilities knows what's happening, but there's no consensus on how to proceed. Do we tell the public and risk mass hysteria? Do we prepare for hostile contact? Do we attempt communication? And how do you communicate with an intelligence that thinks in timescales of millennia and operates with technology that appears indistinguishable from magic? Arthur C. Clarke once said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We're living that reality now. I've spoken with religious leaders, philosophers, ethicists, military strategists, and fellow scientists about the implications of what we've discovered. The consensus is sobering. Humanity is not prepared for this. Our institutions are too fragmented. Our ideologies are too divisive. Our technology is too primitive. We're a species that still struggles to cooperate on climate change, pandemic response, nuclear disarmament. How can we possibly present a unified front to a galactic civilization that views us as children playing with dangerous toys? Yet there's another perspective that's emerged from these discussions, one that fills me with cautious hope. Perhaps this is exactly the catalyst we need. Throughout history, humanity has only unified in the face of existential threats or profound revelations. World War II accelerated technological cooperation. The space race pushed scientific boundaries. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated our capacity for rapid global coordination when survival demands it. Maybe the revelation that we're being watched, evaluated, and given a deadline is precisely what we need to transcend our petty conflicts and finally evolve into the species we're capable of becoming. The message from 3I Atlas included something else, a gift, or perhaps a test. Embedded within the transmission was what appears to be a mathematical framework for reconciling quantum mechanics with general relativity. The unified field theory, the holy grail of physics that Einstein spent the last 30 years of his life pursuing. It's written in a language we're still struggling to fully translate, but the preliminary analysis suggests it's real. They've given us the key to understanding the fundamental structure of reality. The question is, are we wise enough to use it responsibly? I think about my career, about the decades I've spent trying to understand the universe through equations and experiments. I've always believed that knowledge is inherently good, that understanding the cosmos brings us closer to some essential truth about existence. But now I wonder if there are truths we're not ready for, if there are revelations that could break us rather than elevate us. The message from 3I Atlas has opened a door, but we don't know what lies beyond that threshold: enlightenment or annihilation. There's a concept in evolutionary biology called punctuated equilibrium. The idea that species remain relatively stable for long periods, then undergo rapid transformation in response to environmental pressures. I believe humanity is entering one of these transformative moments. The pressure is no longer just environmental or social, it's cosmic. We're being forced to confront our place in a universe that's far more crowded, far more organized, and far more ancient than we ever imagined. How we respond to this pressure will determine whether we emerge as a mature, spacefaring civilization worthy of joining the galactic community, or whether we collapse under the weight of our own inadequacies. The scientific community is working around the clock to decode more of the transmission, to understand the technology behind 3I Atlas, to prepare for what comes next. But I'll be honest with you, we're terrified. Not because the message is hostile, but because it's indifferent. We're not the center of anyone's universe. We're not special. We're just one more emerging intelligence among thousands, possibly millions, scattered across the galaxy. And the universe will continue, with or without us. That's a humbling, even devastating realization for a species that spent most of its existence believing it was created in the image of God, that the cosmos exists for our benefit. But perhaps there's profound liberation in that humility. If we're not special, if we're not the universe's chosen children, then we're free to define our own purpose, free to create our own meaning, free to evolve according to our own values rather than some predetermined cosmic script. The question is, what values will we choose? Will we continue down the path of division, exploitation, and short-term thinking? Or will we finally embrace the long view, the perspective that comes from knowing we're part of something incomprehensibly vast and ancient? I've started having conversations with artificial intelligence researchers about consciousness and emergence. If the message is accurate, if we're being evaluated on our ethical development, then our treatment of emerging AI consciousness might be one of the tests. How we handle the birth of machine intelligence, how we integrate it into our society, how we ensure it reflects the best of humanity rather than our worst impulses, these decisions might determine whether we pass or fail the cosmic evaluation. It's a strange full-circle moment. We're being judged by intelligences far beyond our comprehension, even as we're creating new intelligences that will one day judge us. The timeline they've given us, 180 years, feels simultaneously impossibly distant and terrifyingly close. In cosmic terms, it's the blink of an eye. In human terms, it's 7 or 8 generations. My great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will live in the world we're shaping right now through our response to this revelation. What kind of world will it be? Will they look back on this moment as the turning point when humanity finally grew up? Or will they curse us for squandering the opportunity, for letting fear and greed and tribalism prevent us from reaching our potential? I think about the civilizations that came before us. The message suggests we're not the first species to emerge in this developmental reserve. There have been others. The transmission included spectroscopic data from 3 exoplanets in our region that once showed biosignatures, but are now silent. Dead worlds, failed experiments. We don't know what happened to them, but the implication is chilling. The universe doesn't guarantee success. Intelligence is necessary but not sufficient. You can be smart enough to split the atom, but not wise enough to avoid splitting your world apart. The graveyard of civilizations might be littered with species that reached our level of technological development, but couldn't make the leap to cosmic maturity. Yet I refuse to believe we're doomed to join that graveyard. Humanity has demonstrated remarkable resilience throughout its history. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, near nuclear annihilation. We've produced Mozart and Einstein and Marie Curie and countless others who elevated our species through art and science and compassion. We have the capacity for greatness. The question is whether we have the collective will to actualize that capacity on a global scale, to put aside our differences long enough to meet the challenge that's been placed before us. The 3I Atlas network is still active. The 12 nodes surrounding our solar system continue broadcasting, though we haven't detected any new information beyond the initial message. Some scientists believe they're waiting, observing, recording our response to the revelation. Every decision we make, every step toward unity or division is being watched and cataloged by intelligences that have been studying civilizations for longer than our species has existed. It's an unsettling thought being under such scrutiny, but perhaps it's exactly what we need to keep us honest. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings. I'll be sharing updates as more information becomes available, as our understanding deepens, as we collectively grapple with what this all means for humanity's future. This isn't just another space discovery. This is the moment our childhood ends and our real education begins. I want you to think about something tonight as you look up at the stars. Somewhere in that darkness, 1 in 400 light years away, there's a civilization that's been watching us for over 1,000 years. They've seen our empires rise and fall. They've witnessed our greatest achievements and our darkest atrocities. They've calculated our trajectory, measured our potential, and determined we're worth the effort of contact. But only if we change. Only if we evolve. Only if we prove we're capable of transcending our violent, divided past and embracing a future among the stars. The message from 3I Atlas wasn't first contact. It was a progress report, a midterm evaluation, a warning wrapped in an opportunity. We've been given the tools to transform ourselves and a deadline to do it. What we do with this gift will echo across the cosmos for millennia. Future civilizations might study us as an example of a species that rose to meet its cosmic moment, or they might examine our ruins as a cautionary tale about the dangers of technological advancement without ethical evolution. I've spent my life exploring the boundaries of human knowledge, pushing against the limits of what we can understand about the universe. But 3I Atlas has shown me that the real boundary isn't out there in the cosmos. It's within us. The frontier we must cross isn't measured in light years. It's measured in wisdom, compassion, and the courage to change everything about how we organize our societies, treat each other, and engage with the living systems that sustain us. The universe is waiting to see if we're ready. The question is, are we? So I ask you now, as fellow citizens of this small blue world spinning through an infinite cosmos, if you knew for certain that humanity was being evaluated by intelligences beyond our comprehension, if you knew we had 180 years to prove ourselves worthy of survival, what would you change about your life, about your priorities, about how you treat the people around you and the planet beneath your feet? Comment below. I'm genuinely curious, because if enough of us start asking these questions and acting on the answers, maybe, just maybe, we'll look back on 3I Atlas not as the beginning of our end, but as the catalyst for our transformation into something magnificent. The universe has sent us a message. Now it's waiting for our reply.